Buddhism all the time, but sometimes has different meanings. It's the word Dhamma. So the word Dhamma, we say, is one of the three refuges: Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. It can refer to, we say, the truth or the way things are. It can refer to the teachings of the Buddha, so the texts, the words of the Buddha, which you might say are pointing to the truth or the way things are. Sometimes Dhamma just means thing. So we say wholesome Dhammas, meaning wholesome things, wholesome mental states, or wholesome thoughts. Unwholesome Dhammas, akusala Dhamma, unwholesome mental states. We also talk about principles of things, principles of Dhamma. Maybe something like everything arises from a cause. It's a principle. And sometimes we use the term in just a more vague way, and we say that's the Dhamma of the situation. That's the truth or the way it is in that situation, or in that event, or when we refer to something, say that's the Dhamma of it. So like if you have a fly or a mosquito on you, the Dhamma is that you would practice some form of compassion and you wouldn't kill it. Whatever you do, shoo it away, or whatever you do. The Dhamma would be that you keep your precept and you don't kill it. The opposite of Dhamma is Adhamma. Often in Buddhism we use to mean something that's without, so like we say aroga, without illness, without disease. Dhamma, without the Dhamma. So in the case of the poor mosquito, it lands on your arm. If there's no Dhamma there, in your mind, in your heart, then you might just squash it without a second thought. No conscience, no awareness of karma or precepts. That's Dhamma. When we follow unwholesome mental states, what we call defilements, kilesa, that's Adhamma. They lead to more suffering, more unhappiness. Sometimes we call the practice, what we are doing, say following the Buddhist path, we call it the practice of Dhamma. The study and practice of Dhamma, that's what we do. Say when you fill in a visa form, they say, as a monk, what are you going to do in that place? So I'm going to study and practice Dhamma. Luckily the immigration department don't ask us what does Dhamma mean. So if they did, I guess we could refer them to various books and talks. When I came to Australia the first time, people asked me, what are you going to do there? I said, study and practice Dhamma. Dhamma can mean one single thing, a single thought or a single object, a single idea. but it can also mean everything, the Dhamma. It can mean nature, the universe, the nature, the way of nature, the environment. So it can be used in one context very broadly, and sometimes just reduced right down to a very small thing. The Buddha said one who sees the Buddha or knows the Buddha knows the Dhamma. One who knows the Dhamma knows the Buddha. So at the highest level they become synonymous, the same thing. We say when somebody realizes the Dhamma, means they've penetrated the Four Noble Truths. They understand what is dukkha, its cause, and they've abandoned the cause. They've realized the cessation of dukkha and suffering, and they know the path, and they've practiced the path leading to the end of suffering. That's somebody who's done all of that, realized the Four Noble Truths, have realized the Dhamma. They know the Dhamma. They may or not be able to explain it, and they may remember all kinds of teachings or not, but if they have realized the Dhamma, they've freed their mind from the causes of suffering. They're liberated, as it were. And their mind is with the Dhamma, or the mind has become Dhamma, is one with the Dhamma. So sometimes they say, oh, this person has Dhamma, meaning they understand very well the practice and the right way to practice it. They have the qualities of the Dhamma. Maybe someone's very mindful or very wise, very compassionate. They have the Dhamma. There's somebody who maybe is very selfish or very cruel or very foolish in their behavior. Doesn't have the Dhamma. No Dhamma there. So at times when human beings treat each other not very well, we say, not much Dhamma there. Meaning their hearts, they've lost the Dhamma. The positive side is, well, you can lose the Dhamma, you can find it again. It's not forever, it's not fixed. So even though we do lose our way, sometimes just briefly, sometimes for longer periods, or somebody may even lose their way, lose the Dhamma for a whole lifetime. It's still possible to find it or come back to it again. But it may take time. So it's a very useful term. Cultivating the Dhamma, having Dhamma, being with the Dhamma. We have that book, we say being Dhamma, is referring to Ajahn Kalyano, meaning no longer studying and practicing it, but just being Dhamma. And that's one of the reasons people remember Ajahn Kalyano and his teachings so much, so clearly and so fondly, because his life, his practice just merged with the Dhamma, so everything he was doing was some form of Dhamma, some form of teaching, even if he wasn't particularly saying anything or explaining anything to anyone, not giving any talk, answering a question, he would still be Dhamma. So people who spent time with him would gain a lot of Dhamma, a lot of understanding, a lot of peace, a lot of the good qualities that we associate with the Dhamma and the practice of Dhamma. Because Luang Por Chah was kind of the same as Dhamma, just like the Buddha was. One who knows the Buddha knows the Dhamma, knows the Dhamma knows the Buddha. The mind that's realized the Dhamma is like that. Everything they say, they do, becomes like that. A reflection or something that points to the Dhamma. Sometimes the Dhamma is displayed without a word being said. You say in a monastery, you see that people sometimes they just do some useful thing. They show some kindness to someone, or they do a useful task. Nobody's told them to. They don't say anything about it. They just do it. It's a form of Dhamma teaching. Or a Buddhist monk goes out with his alms bowl to collect food somewhere, just walking around. We say they're ambassador or a messenger of the Dhamma. People might not speak to them, but they just see a Buddhist monk, a renunciant, an alms mendicant, shaven head, wearing a robe. We stand out in society because we don't dress the same, don't look the same. But we also symbolize something, symbolize the Dhamma, the path of peace, the path to the end of suffering. You're like a walking advert without having to say a word or without having to write anything. You're already advertising the Dhamma. A monastery is a kind of Dhamma advert. When we first came here, this was a farm. It was a winery and a cattle farm. So people would come in still looking at the place as a farm and say things like, "Why are you here?" So somebody in Thailand thought, you need a Buddha. So they sent a Buddha, beautiful gold Buddha statue. The Buddha teaching the Dhammacakka Sutta, the first teaching. And we put it up at the front of the monastery. So it's still there after all these years. So that the first thing you see when you come to the monastery is the Buddha. Because it's a Buddhist monastery, a place where we study and practice the Dhamma. So sometimes different symbols, buildings, statues, things that can help bring our mind closer to the Dhamma because they simply remind us of the Buddha and his teachings. But then on another level you also have just kind of the atmosphere, the presence of the Dhamma in terms of a certain subtle feeling, sensation, or just somehow it affects you, doesn't it? You come into a monastery from the world, there's this sense of dropping the confusion and the activities of the world. You come into a peaceful place, partly because it's natural, it's just forest and ponds and land and rocks, but partly because of the way people live who are here. Even sometimes there's a lot of people here, but because they live with the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma, there's a certain energy, a certain good feeling. And people pick up on that. So like somebody the other day was saying, I come here, I'm immediately peaceful. I drop all my worries and my stress. But they said the trouble was when they go home, they pick it up again. At least they get temporary relief, and that's like their mind comes closer to the Dhamma for a while. When you meditate, you're bringing your mind closer to the Dhamma. When you're mindful in a situation, mindful of your precepts, mindful of some aspect of the Dhamma, and then you're closer to the Dhamma. So mindfulness is kind of the channel, the pathway between you and the Dhamma. So as you have a sense of presence and being aware, you remember the teachings, you're present, you're aware of what you're doing, what's happening around you, what the situation is. So then, if you are someone practicing the Dhamma, then you bring the Dhamma to that situation. So like going back to the mosquito, to consciously not kill an animal in a situation where you could kill an animal, you have to be mindful of the Dhamma, mindful of maybe your intention not to kill, your intention to cultivate kindness and compassion perhaps. You have to pay attention to what you're doing, what the situation is, what's happening. That's why when you're in conversation with many people, it's hard to be with the Dhamma. Because many views and opinions fly around, many moods, many thoughts, many ideas, many words, sounds. So sometimes we get caught up in what is not Dhamma, simply because there's so much happening and we just can't keep track of it all. So sometimes we say things that we later regret, or things that are not very helpful, or not necessary, or even hurtful. The conversation is one, or speaking, talking is one area. We have to practice right speech to bring the mind back to the Dhamma, or to keep the Dhamma. Sometimes to practice Dhamma you have to have some limits or boundaries around yourself, your behavior. Again, when you meditate you realize this. Because our actions and our speech will affect our state of mind, and then when you meditate you'll see that, you'll notice that. Everything you've said will come up again, and particularly the stronger the emotion, the more likely it will come up, and maybe come up as an internal thought, mood, feeling, sometimes with regret or annoyance. Many of our emotions are sort of feeding back to past conversations or past actions. And then as you meditate you realize, I have to be more mindful in my day, because it's all coming up when I sit down to meditate. I can remember everything, or it comes up whether I like it or not. I have to remember it. And not everything we do is that peaceful or conducive to peace. As you meditate, mindfulness comes up and you learn. Mindfulness is the vehicle and the support for wisdom, understanding, back with the Dhamma again. Sometimes in situations the Dhamma is not always immediately obvious. What is the right thing to do, the right thing to say? What should I be aiming for here in a certain situation? You may have to ponder it for a while, give it some reflection on what is the Dhamma of this, what is going to lead to suffering, what is going to lead to happiness, or the end of suffering. We don't always know. We have to think about things. Sometimes we have to be willing to try things and make mistakes. So another aspect of Dhamma, you practice Dhamma, you also become a little bolder or more courageous. Because you realize sometimes you have to try things or push yourself sometimes when you're feeling lazy or careless. Sometimes you don't know a course of action if it's going to work or not, but you try it. And so you become a bit more bolder. Sometimes you have to deal with other people who don't understand Dhamma, don't see the Dhamma in the same way as you, or maybe are even against the Dhamma. So you also have to be courageous sometimes, because your values and what you're trying to practice doesn't match with the people around you. The Buddha said to reach the Dhamma you have to be supremely patient and endure a lot as well. Because our mind loves to go away from the Dhamma to other things that are more absorbing but ultimately fruitless, ultimately pointless, or bringing us to even suffering. That's our habit, and that is the easy way to go. And we love to indulge, we love to distract ourselves, we love to follow emotions, even negative emotions. Sometimes you follow anger. Sometimes it's the easiest way, just give in and be angry, or be unhappy about something. To find the Dhamma, or be with the Dhamma, requires patience, requires effort. You learn this when you meditate. The effort to establish mindfulness on an object when your mind keeps racing away and falling into different trains of thought, different emotions. Keep bringing it back to the present moment, to the breath, or whatever your meditation object is. Requires a lot of patient effort. So in that situation, that's the Dhamma. Maybe the Dhamma of patient effort is what you need when you meditate. Sometimes we need the Dhamma of wise reflection. Maybe there's something you keep thinking over and over again, keeps disturbing your mind, remembering something, getting annoyed, unhappy with yourself, unhappy with another person. So you may need the Dhamma of wise reflection. Reflect on that. Encourage yourself to practice compassion. Develop a better way of thinking about it so that you can drop your annoyance. So the Dhamma in our minds, in our hearts, the Dhamma in a situation will depend on what that situation is. Maybe simply the Dhamma of being aware, or the Dhamma of kindness, compassion, or the Dhamma of effort, the Dhamma of patience. These are all Dhammas, wholesome Dhammas that we try to cultivate through the practice. And the more these qualities come up, then we can say, this is the Dhamma. We understand it better and we can rely on the Dhamma more. If you practice meditation regularly, your mindfulness improves and your ability to reflect on things probably improves. Then you actually have a chance to see the Dhamma and know the Dhamma better. Maybe it's just something very simple, just seeing the impermanent nature of something. To understand maybe you can't always get what you want or keep what you want, what you like in life. Your body doesn't stay the same all the time, your thoughts don't stay the same, your mind, your state of mind, how you feel about yourself, your life, other people, even our views on things, our beliefs, and how we feel about things changes. One day you like this person and the next day you don't. Things change, but when you have enough mindfulness to see that, helps you grow a bit and develop a wiser attitude. That's the Dhamma of impermanence, seeing or realizing impermanence. Say, I shouldn't hold on to this view so tightly because it might change. This thought or this reaction I'm having, or this feeling in my body, or this the state of my health or the state of my body at the moment, it may change. It's not sure. That's the Dhamma of it. So when you see the Dhamma of impermanence, it can be very awakening, and it can be give us a really clear understanding that we didn't have before. And then your mind goes quiet. It's another aspect of the Dhamma. Compare the Dhamma to a deep lake deep blue water, very still, cool lake. When you see the Dhamma or realize the Dhamma of something, say, you realize the impermanent nature of a certain mood that before you kept holding on to, or there's a certain experience you keep chasing after, but you finally realize, oh, it's impermanent. It'll be there, it won't be there. It's temporary. And you finally realize that, your mind goes quiet, peaceful. That's the whole point of Dhamma. Bringing your mind to the Dhamma is it makes your mind peaceful, calm, at ease. Becomes clear, so you get clear vision of something. You understand something you didn't understand before. So it becomes like this deep blue lake full of water, refreshing. It's another aspect of the Dhamma. It refreshes you. When your mind is with the Dhamma, it's not bored, it's not confused. It's not agitated, it's not despairing, disappointed, it's refreshed. So the more we can bring the mind to see the Dhamma, know the Dhamma, realize the Dhamma, the better for us. There's a certain release from everything that is not Dhamma. So you feel better for that, you feel more peaceful. And often the Dhamma is something you can experience right here, right now, as we chant. It's apparent here and now. It's timeless. It's always there. The Dhamma, the truth, the way things are. It's always available to be investigated, realized at any moment. It's not something far away. Often in our life, in our kind of culture, we are always thinking of these long-term goals. We have our dreams, we have our goal, and in Buddhism that can happen as well. You have your goal, oh, Nibbana, I want to get enlightened, but it seems so far away. So of course you don't feel you can do it yet, or you feel, oh, this life I'm never going to reach enlightenment. So already you feel disappointed and disheartened. The whole point is, the Dhamma is apparent here and now. All we have to do is bring your mind to the present moment. Already you're a little bit nearer enlightenment. So sometimes we have to adjust our thinking. We can still have the long-term goal of Nibbana, but maybe the short-term goal of letting go of whatever it is you're attaching to or not seeing right now, the delusion that's arising right now, let go of that. And many short-term goals will link together, bringing you towards your long-term goal. You say when you sit down to meditate, you may assign yourself some time. You say, I'm going to meditate for half an hour or 1 hour. Maybe that goal is more practical and more important to you than, oh, I want to become enlightened. If you have the goal, I want to be enlightened all the time, in your thinking, then of course anything that reminds you you're not enlightened will make you feel depressed about yourself. But if you say, I'm going to sit meditation and not stop for the next half an hour or 1 hour, whatever it is, that's more manageable, a more realistic goal, and you can work with that. So maybe after 10 minutes you have the thought, oh, I'm going to stop, do something else, or I'm just going to sit here and let myself fall asleep, or I'm just going to have some nice little fantasy about something. You maybe can work with that because you've got a shorter period of time, and sometimes you have to battle with your own mind. That requires effort, requires putting forth effort, being patient and using some mindfulness and wisdom. But you're willing to do that if it's for a short period of time. If you're just walking around saying, oh, I've got to get enlightened, my goal is enlightenment, every day you're feeling, I'm not enlightened yet. My life is not going anywhere. My practice is not going anywhere. Well, of course, you'll feel very depressed. So short-term goals are often the more valuable Dhamma, and it brings you to the Dhamma that is apparent here and now, just to be mindful of whatever's arising now, how you feel, what you think, what you're doing, where you are. That much you can do. And that is, in fact, what anyone can do, even an enlightened being. They're just mindful from moment to moment to moment. So if you're mindful for one moment, there's a little bit of enlightenment right there. No different from an arahant, except for they keep doing it and we stop. We give up in our enlightened moment and go back to the darkness of delusion. So we have to be willing to pick ourselves up over and over again. But the Dhamma is here with us, right here, right now. So it's not anything very far away, it's not in the future. That would be impossible, getting enlightened in the future. Enlightenment, knowing, the quality, the central quality of enlightenment is knowing, awareness, right here, right now. So it's not in the future. It's not some place, in outer space or somewhere else. It's right here, right now. But learning to bring the mind back to the present moment. So maybe I'll leave you with these reflections tonight, a few reflections on the Dhamma.